Welcome back. So the Jacana Literary Foundation will be giving free digital masterclasses. Internationally acclaimed authors will share their best practices and give insights into some of the components of writing fiction, memoirs, poetry, and short stories. Joining us now is Bridget Impey, who is Jacana Literary Foundation's director. Bridget, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. I'm going to sign up. I'm definitely joining you guys.
That's wonderful.
I'm definitely joining you guys. I look forward to the discussions that will be taking place. But I guess also the debate and insights around what has changed in the literary world.
What has changed in the literary world? Well, since when? You know, we've had so many changes and life is ongoing. Change happens all the time.
Yeah, change happens all the time. But for instance, now we speak about the rise of modern poetry. How's that rise of modern poetry different to, for instance, the traditional poetry that we were used to with the components of, you know, your regular rhymes and rhythms as well?
I think that it is about how poetry is delivered. So poetry can be delivered. What we're finding now is that there's so much more performance poetry, that people are able to connect with groups of people and perform their poetry in ways that weren't common and popularly practiced before. So I think that's one of the changes that's happened. But I think also poetry, you know, when you look at whether people are reading books and full-length novels and full-length books, that seems to be slowing down a bit. And people are picking up poetry because it's easier to connect and doesn't take so much bandwidth, really.
It doesn't take so much bandwidth. But some level of creativity, I believe, that is required as well, because it is the use of language to express something.
Of course it is. And it's a distillation and it's the essence and it's such care that needs to be taken in poetry. So that while it might be short and look easy, it's really one of the very hardest things to do well, which is why I think that the class that we'll be holding on Monday is going to open a lot of people's eyes into some of the ways that that poetry can be put into practice.
Yeah. So tell us what happens on Monday between 6 and 7:30 in the evening.
Well, we have Nick Mulgrew with us. And Nick Mulgrew is a rarity in South Africa because he has a press which publishes poetry, which is called Ushlanga. And he's going to be talking to a group which is growing steadily in number and about how to put your poetry into practice. Some of the stages that you need to go to, some of the ways of thinking, some of the steps that you need to take, and as well how to get published, because I think that's one of the hardest things for for writers in this country, writers of poetry, is to find an outlet for their poetry.
To find an outlet for the poetry. Are we speaking here just about publishing, or are we speaking also about platforms where you can actually perform that poetry?
I think in this instance, we're talking about having your poetry published, whether it's in magazines, journals, blogs, various online platforms. But the performance aspect of it, that isn't something we'll be going into in this session.
Okay, then speak to us about the work that has been happening around the world to encourage more people to start writing poetry, or even, just as some people have said, just journal. If you have something to say, just journal. And perhaps maybe that may just steer you within a certain direction.
I think it is. It's about looking inward, isn't it? Mm-hmm. It's about discovering more about yourself through that process of looking within yourself. Mm. And often that is what can lead to writing poetry. I think that one of the things, though, that's happening is that more and more, because writing is such a lonely profession, you don't sit in an office full of people and do it. And that what we're finding is that there needs to be support offered to writers, to either to allow them to join groups or to just be there for the kind of questions that they need to ask. And so that's why all of these Wise Up classes that we've been running have been so eagerly taken up by not only poets, but by short story writers, by novelists, by people wanting to do research. So there have been quite a number of them.
Yeah. I think the other difficulty that some people have is that sense of almost feeling exposed sometimes when once you've done writing your poetry and you share it with the public. And then also sometimes what comes with it is that sense of the imposter syndrome. Should I be doing this? Do I belong within this particular group? Or should I just be writing my poetry and just put it somewhere far away, and many, many years later somebody perhaps maybe discovers a book that Aldrin has been writing poetry in, and I won't be there to watch them read the poetry and try and interpret what I was trying to say.
Aldrin, get it out from that suitcase under your bed right now.
How do you get to that level? How do you, because it also requires a sense of confidence, I believe.
Of course it does.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think that that's when writers' groups are so valuable. So many of the people that we speak to are part of a group, and that group might be 5 people who are struggling like you are to have the confidence. And in these groups, you're able to share your work, and in a very safe environment. And I think that really is such a very helpful opportunity for writers to be in. We ran a workshop just recently. It was 4 workshops over a month, and there were 60 people signed up. And within that group of 60, people could ask the kind of questions and felt allowed and felt empowered to ask questions from the person who was running the course. And so it's in those spaces, in those situations, that you find that other people are asking exactly the same kind of questions as you are, feel as unconfident, and yet they're still going ahead and doing things. And that can empower and give you the confidence.
Yeah, language is
Join
very
up,
important.
Aldrin.
Language is very... Do you know what? I have to say, Bridget, at some point as a kid, I was very confident in my writing and sharing my experience and writing poetry. And I remember my teacher saying, my grade 7 teacher saying to me, geez, it means that you had to grow up very quickly. And I'm like, yeah, and I put it down. I used to write poetry. But in my adult life, I really struggle.
And why did you struggle, Aldrin? I mean, were you struggling with putting the words down, or were you struggling with sharing it?
I think I was struggling with whether I have the correct bandwidth of vocabulary to express how I feel, or what I'm seeing, or what I want to put down.
Well, listen, if you can do this on television, I don't know what you're worried about.
I don't think it's the same thing. But Bridget, tell us who's invited to this event, who should be coming through on Monday, and how do they get more details around how they can be part of this poetry in practice session?
Well, first of all, they should sign up to the Jacana mailing list, and because that's where all the information comes from. But on Monday, it will be on Crowdcast. There's a platform called Crowdcast, and if you look at Crowdcast Jacana, you will find the workshop that's happening on Monday, the poetry workshop. And it's for anybody who is interested in writing poetry, whether you are an established poet, whether you are just starting out. And this one is particularly aimed at a sort of mid-level. So if you're starting out, you can listen in and see what's happening. And if you're established, well, it will help you just gain some more insights, because Nick is really one of the best we have around. So anybody interested in writing poetry, any writers who are not poets but who might be interested in learning more, please sign up.
Yeah, so Google Crowdcast at Jacana, and you may just get that link. But here's the website quickly, www.crowdcast.io. /C/poetry in practice, and you can get more of those details around that. But just quickly, Bridget, before we conclude our conversation, are there any other workshops that Jacana Literary Foundation are running that we should be looking out for?
Well, there are quite a number that are already on the Crowdcast site, because there's an archive with all the workshops that we've run. So if you're interested in how to get published, if you're interested in short story writing, if you're interested in the steps to take to write a novel, all of those you will find on Crowdcast. You'll need to sign up, register, and then you have access to an absolutely wonderful archive. We have more workshops coming up next year. They're quite exciting. There's one on travel writing coming up next. And more than that, I'm not going to share with you, because what you need to do is to sign up and just be enlightened as they appear.
Yeah. I already have a title for my next poem, Bridget, the lady who said, just go ahead and do it.
I'm waiting for you.
I'll be joining you guys on Monday. Thank you so much for making time for us, Bridget.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That's Bridget Impey, who is the director for the Jacana Literary Foundation. And they will be running this workshop that will be taking place on Monday. So if you're interested in writing poetry, and perhaps maybe you're one of those people who have been writing but needs a bit of some finessing that needs to take place, you can join them. Go Google Crowdcast Jacana and you'll get that link as well. You can go to our website.